Redditors, who are not in love with their so's, why are you still with them? I was the one super in love. I don't think he was. Once every 4 or 5 months, we'd have some sort of discussion. The last time, it was that he didn't know if what we had was love. I should have seen that as a warning. But I convinced him to stay with me after an hour discussion. I think he felt guilty. I stayed with him through suicide attempts, drug-induced psychosis, and moved countries for him. I imagine he felt an incredible amount of guilt and stayed with me because of that. I think he cared for my well-being maybe, but he wasn't in love. And it's painfully obvious now that I'm out of the relationship. I hate this one because I can't just chalk it up to someone being a jerk. My brother can't stand his wife. Hasn't really been in love with her since about a year before their wedding. He talks about divorce to me when we're alone, but he'll never do it. He thinks he'll never meet anyone else, being 32 with no social life. Plus there's a strong possibility she might kill herself if they broke up. Or at least attempt it. So together they'll stay. I just hope they don't bring kids into it. 32 ? He has so much life ahead of him. And no kids. He needs to get out of there and his wife needs therapy. My boss has been vocal about wanting to leave. But he has kids and no prenup. So he can't afford it. My cousin told me about 3 hours after he got married that he didn't want to get married, but now he was terrified he would lose his house and basically all his money, alimony plus child support, if they got divorced. I told him that he should have said something 3+ hours ago and he said he couldn't. I then asked him if this was such a big concern to him, why he didn't get a prenup. His exact words to me were, "Those don't actually exist. They are just made up for movies." They've been married just over 2 years now and I'm pretty sure it's only going to end if she leaves him or one of them dies. Considering he's 26 and she's 23 or 24. It sounds like he's in for a long, miserable life. My parents did not love each other but have stayed together because of children. Oh boy. This shit is common as duck in India, dude. It just sort of became a habit. And when I realized I didn't have the feelings anymore, we had 2 young children and I didn't want to break up the family. And later when we tried couples therapy, this didn't change anything. But our son was diagnosed with leukemia 2 years ago. So I felt we had to stay together until he was well. My ex didn't agree and we were divorced this summer. My son is almost through the treatment and is doing fine. I have not been this happy and relaxed in years. And so far the kids, 6 and 9 have coped well with me moving and when they are staying at my new place. You guys did the right thing. Much better for children to have separated. Happy parents than married. Miserable ones. Glad to hear you're doing well. I am currently in an amazing relationship. Textbook true love type of stuff. However, years back I was in a relationship with a woman who abused me physically, sexually and otherwise. And I did not love her. Not for the last year or so when the abuse got bad. So why did I stay if it was so bad? Well, unfortunately, and this is true for abusive relationship as well as for mundane loveless relationships, people get wound up together and then it becomes very difficult to imagine your life without them. Even if it's not a good life. I guess people are better at surviving the current hardship than breaking away into the unknown. There's a lot more to my story. And every one story has its own details. But I think that's the basic answer. You build a life with someone. It gets hard to throw that life away. What do you have in your current relation that's so amazing? I've never had that textbook true love before. I'm thankfully not in this relationship anymore. But out of fear that he'd do something to hurt himself. He threatened to do it when I first brought up that I wasn't happy in the relationship. And he became incredibly manipulative. A lot of people are stuck in a relationship for the same reason. And it's just so sad. I'm glad you could get out of it. My sister is a massive piece of shit. Constantly calls her husband limpy in front of people. In reference to his supposed limp big dick. Tells him that she wishes he'd get in a car and drive off a cliff. I'm not saying she does this just when they are arguing. I mean she does this literally every single day. Not even angry at him. He's been dealing with this bullshit for 20 plus years out of the 30 years they've been together. The reason he does not leave here is that she would be homeless if he did. She has a bunch of felonies for theft, identity theft, prescription forgeries, etc. She used to be a nurse. Had a decent career. Now she wouldn't be able to get a job anywhere. He knows that if he were to leave her, there's a decent chance she'd die on the streets. Other than him, everyone has abandoned her at this point. Just a side note. He is an incredibly honest person. Never steals. Does not do drugs. Goes to work every single day and works hard. Edit. Here are some text messages between them that their son, my nephew, sent me. I guess his mom sent them to him to show that their father did not deny abusing her. The husband doesn't look great here. But I can't honestly blame him at this point. I spent a couple of years living in their house a while back. And I can't say that I never saw the dude get angry, be abusive, or anything else. Maybe he's had enough at this point and is fighting back. Not sure. However, in the time I spent living there I had my sister steal everything out of my wallet. Sign up for credit cards in my name. Watched her abuse him and the kids, emotionally, nearly every day. etc. Overall, it's just a very sad situation. Jesus. Let her be homeless. Edit. Thanks for the silver. Did not expect such a huge response here. I am so sick of men being treated like garbage because some women think they deserve everything. I am a woman. BTW. And would never treat my lovely BF like this. Good question OP. I'm in a relationship for the last 14 years and what I have to say is, love is amorphous. It changes what it is and is hard to pinpoint sometimes. Sometimes you will be mad at each other. Sometimes you will share laughter and smiles and hugs and kisses. Sometimes you will be underwhelmed. Sometimes you will be bored. Sometimes you will be full of pride and appreciation. Other times you will take them for granted. Sometimes the sex will be great. Other times Sammy. But life goes on. Can anyone truly say they are in love constantly and without interruption always? Or is it something that ebbs and flows? I think the latter. But I am always loyal and feel allegiance to my partner and family. I always have the attitude that I am committed and we are on this journey together. And I certainly don't want to be with anyone else. So that's my 2 cents right now. Loved her dog. I had 2 dogs with my ex. He was a musician with a part-time minimum wage retail job. So I paid for everything. Cleaned up after the dogs. Cooked for the dogs on days where he was just too damned lazy to pick up dog food. I knew I wasn't in love with him. But I loved the dogs and didn't feel capable of leaving. I finally left him when I found out he was on Tinder trying to hook up with other girls. First thing he did was post a picture on social media that I took on my camera of him with our dogs. Caption is a long as paragraph about difficult it is to raise 2 dogs all on his own. But he's a dedicated single dog dad. In my first relationship I thought I had scored the jackpot. I was young and he was young and jacked and smart. He overglorified himself and I just couldn't see that. I looked up to him as a god. Mainly because he kept saying I was bad at my studies and cooking and basically everything that I love to do. I thought I would never get someone better so thus I stayed. I thought I loved him. I thought that was what love was. But I was just proud that I had gotten someone so amazing. I was stupid. I had a similar situation in high school. I was stupid. Thought I was madly in love with a guy even though he repeatedly emotionally abused me. I thought I hit the jackpot because he was handsome and everyone thought he was cool. I stayed because it was the first guy to show interest in me and I had zero self-esteem. I thought if I left, nobody would want me, part of the emotional abuse. Finally left because I was the worst version of myself with him and I think he cheated on me. I even remember after we broke up we saw each other and he commented on how much I'm letting myself go because I had something in my teeth. Fast forward, I'm 4 years married to the kindest man in the world whom I'm madly in love with. When I was in a relationship with my ex, I liked her, cared for her, been there for her when she needed and gave space if she needed. I don't know if this is love, but she did none in return. She just said yes and that's it. She was only physically attracted to me, I guess. I don't think she ever loved me. She broke up with me for nothing. One day she wanted me out of her life, so I left. I was in the other side of this relationship. Basically dirty. I can't really excuse it. It was pretty shitty of me. I just couldn't bring myself to care at the time. It was always just a why not, I guess, for me at the time. But I could never be bothered to put in the effort. Eventually I broke up with her when she told me she felt like I wasn't putting in any effort. I basically just said I know. And I don't think I will. You're better off elsewhere. Till the best way to stay in a long-term relationship is to be suicidal. Joke's on you. I'm already dead inside. Being in love seems like a state over which you have no control. I long ago made the decision just to love the woman who became my wife. Fortunately, she made the same decision about me. Romantic infatuation has faded, but our love for each other endures. It takes work to maintain. To avoid taking each other for granted. Love is not an emotion. It is a practice. Edit. Thank you for the awards. I'm glad I could contribute to making some folks' days a little more hopeful. And perhaps inspire a bit more love in the world. I love this. I have been married for 21 years and this is true. I also think feelings of being in love can come back. For us it was a matter of our kids being older now and us finding hobbies we love doing together. Reignited that flame. I'm glad we stuck it out through the hard times. I realized recently that every relationship I've been in, until the current one, had absolutely no love in it. I told myself I loved them, but I was really with every one of them for convenience or because they asked me out and I was scared to say no. The last two ended so horribly. I was scared to leave the house for a long time, and routinely asked guys at my job to walk me to my car because I heard one of them was looking for me. Met my current so online. Moved 800 miles away to be with him. It'll be 2 years in January and we just had a baby girl together. It just took a literal duck ton of pain to get to the happy spot. I was afraid he'd kill himself because he was so depressed, so I waited till he was a bit better mentally. The second was more of a roller coaster. I waited 5 months before breaking up because so many things came up. I didn't want him to think I was obsessed with the number 3, so I couldn't break up after 3 months. Then it was summer break, so I couldn't see him and I wanted to do it in person. Then his birthday. Then Christmas. I finally broke up in Jan. And then get back in April because I genuinely fell for him again. We lasted 3 years before I realized I was the only one putting any effort into staying in the relationship and finally broke it off for good. As others have said, it is impossible to love someone the same way every day. So it is normal that on some days everything is fine and on other days you are not sure how you feel. You don't know what love is anymore. You feel confused and suffocated. But what really matters is knowing that you are unable to be disloyal or purposely hurt the person you have chosen to be your partner. And you know you can count with them when you are well and when you're not. And when you think about the relationship, you know you don't want to be with anyone else. I think that idea we have that love should be all romantic and roses is very wrong. Life is not like that. A relation is hard work. In the end of the day, what matters is be there for each other. Neither of us experience attraction, but we still care deeply for each other. He's my best friend. Also, the marriage was mutually beneficial. Honestly, that sounds like a good deal to me. I truly don't know if I've ever loved anyone I've been with. I am committed to people. I'm loyal. I'll care for their needs. I'll talk about feelings, but I just don't feel much of anything other than anxious, angry, or numb. Recently I felt happy, so that was exciting to be able to recognize. I was diagnosed with PTSD a few months ago from childhood trauma, and I guess I never learned to recognize or acknowledge emotions. So all my previous relationships were just me going through the motions of what I thought you were supposed to do. Which means staying even if it's toxic or abusive, because if I can't feel love then it must just mean commitment. Thank the Lord Jesus I am in therapy now, so I'll get better soon. Edit. Fixed autocorrect spelling mistake. Thank you, kind stranger. I'm no longer with them, but was with her for 8 years. I never loved her but stayed because of a combination of self-loathing, and she relied on me for everything, so I was afraid of what would happen if I left. Also financially I couldn't live on my own. But I bit the bullet anyway because I can figure out the rest, and staying with her was only stunting her ability to learn how to be an adult. My soon-to-be ex-husband and I had been together for almost 8 years when we both decided to get a divorce. Had been high school sweethearts. But we both were going in different directions in our life and it was time to move on. I knew right after we got married, I was only 20 at the time, that I think I was more in the idea of being married and in love than actually being in love and happy. About 2 years ago I had a GF that was only staying with me because she was worried I'll start smoking weed again, because I quit it once our relationship started. Bad decision, and after a month of a loveless relationship I got tired and broke up with her. Now I smoke a lot of weed and I'm more happy, so duck you Midori. We have 2 dogs together, 2 rabbits, and fish. Been together for 2 years and I honestly loved him so much up until I found the texts to other women asking for pictures of their feet. I don't even care about the feet fetish. It's just that he asks other girls. I confronted him. Thought we would move past it and stayed with him. Needless to say, he's still texting other women. Always turning his phone away from me. I want to leave. I can't afford it. I can't live with any of my family. Father's side disowned me. Mother's side is all abusive. Can't afford to live on my own. Have a crush on a guy at work that honestly treats me better than anyone has ever treated me my entire life. But I've settled for just living with my cheating boyfriend in exchange for kissing him every once in a while since he hasn't had sex with me still. Can you break up and just stay roommates until you can afford to move in with a different roommate? It doesn't sound like your life would be much different. Except you wouldn't kiss someone who doesn't appreciate you. And instead you could work on yourself emotionally and date someone else. For the kids. My wife can't manage the children on her own. As she has shown when I go on business trips. I return from a week away and the house is a mess and the kids haven't done any homework. What would happen if I stayed away for more than a week? Like forever? If we were divorced, my access to the kids would be seriously curtailed. So I have been riding it out. The kids will be done high school soon. Then I'll be out of reasons not to get a divorce. Fear. Fear of him and what he'd do to himself, or me. Fear of being alone. Fear of disappointing my family and friends because they all loved him. Spoiler, they didn't, they just said they did for me. Finally just did it and I've realized there was nothing to be afraid of all along. I moved to a new country by myself to start studying. Shortly after I moved, I downloaded a dating app and started dating this guy. In the beginning it was great. We got along well. But there were a few things that really annoyed me. He'd invite me over but wouldn't clean his room. So it'd be really dirty and uncomfortable. He'd chew with his mouth open even though I always asked him to stop, and I was the one that always had to travel 1.5h to see him. I never loved him. I'm not even sure if I was even attracted to him. But I was scared of being alone. Especially in the new country where I knew no one. He also told me that he's very depressed and I was scared of breaking up with him because of some of the things he said. He knew I had an ex who committed suicide. As well as a friend of mine who attempted suicide. I feel like he made up his depression because it's kept me with him. Men's mental health has always been super important to me and he just used that to his advantage. Commenting because I know my soul irks my account and will see me posting in this thread. Calm down. I still love you, Lauren.